Hi, soul travelers, it's Medusa, and welcome back to another episode of A Little Nugget of Peace. In today's episode, I want to talk about the concept of speaking to ourselves. How do we know when we're speaking to ourselves? How to speak to ourselves? And what does our inner and outer dialogue say about ourselves as well? Early on my personal journey, I realized that everything that I say is to myself. This is why it's so important to have compassionate speech, because everything that we say is only said to ourselves. Even if we think that we're talking to other people, even if we are in that moment talking to another person, all the words that are coming out of our mouth are for us to hear. When we have our inner voice or our inner dialogue, the way that we speak to ourselves within, when we're speaking to that inner child or inner teenage self, how are we speaking to them? Is it with love and nurturance and compassion? Or are we just repeating patterns that we grew up with in our childhood? When we speak outward, is it with compassion? Is it with understanding? Or are we speaking from a place of anger, of confusion, of ungroundedness? The beautiful thing about this earth that we're on and this life that we're living, and sometimes that we can forget that there is no time. There is no time limit in which we need to respond to something, to a question, to a conversation. We can take our time and pause before we say our next words. We can take our time and reflect for a few minutes or a few days so that we can digest and integrate if we're needing to do that. We are always speaking to and with ourselves. And a good example of this is, how do we choose to speak to ourselves in moments when we feel ungrounded or when we feel afraid? Are we acting out of the space of our higher self? Are we acting out of the space of parenting ourselves in a loving and nurturing way? Or are we talking down to ourselves? Are we bullying ourselves in speech? It does take practice, and it does take a level of awareness to understand that every word that comes out of my mouth is meant for me to hear. And sometimes we can catch it in the moment, and then we can pause, and then we can reflect and dive a little deeper into why we just said what we said. What are we feeling in this moment? Awareness is such a big part of our speech. If we're speaking without thinking, then the words don't mean anything. And our words are spells. They are manifestations of energy. So how we speak, how we talk to ourselves or one another, we are creating spells. We are manifesting an energy in that exchange. That is why it's important to not speak out of the mind space, but from the heart. Speaking from our hearts, being true and honest to ourselves and with others of what is our truth, and not allowing ourselves to create stories, to create assumptions, to fall into illusions of what isn't happening right in front of us right now. When we speak, reflecting on how we speak to ourselves, and also reflecting on how others speak to us, because again, we are only speaking to ourselves. So the words that others may say to us may not be for us, even if they are directed towards us. They may be words that they need to hear, whether they are aware of it or not. Yet, even in another's speech, there is still something to learn about ourselves. Asking yourself, how am I choosing to speak with myself? And how is that a reflection of the relationship with self and my relationship with others? I would love for you to share in the comments a moment where you felt that you weren't being compassionate in your speech and what you chose to do to redirect yourself. We're going to end this episode with a message from our spirit animal friends. And we have the Hawaiian owl. The message says, your ancestral spirit guides are offering you guidance now, so pay close attention to signs and omens from them. And thank you so much for witnessing. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a like, a comment, and make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. There also will be links below if you feel called to follow me on my other platforms. And also check out my website, as I have herbal blend offerings as well as a conscious clothing line where I have created beautiful artwork for clothes and other types of accessories that share compassionate messages. And I will see you next week for the next episode.